Hey guys, Cam here. Just got a new video. I talked about in the previous video that I did that I was going to start up doing the series that I made a start on last year but never finished, and that was the grand final or the finals from the LAN. I finished the upper bracket final, but I never got to the grand final. So I plan to do those videos still for you guys because they are good games to watch because there's mistakes made under pressure against good players. So by both myself and Dan. So they're probably the best games to learn from rather than some of the other games I tend to post where you're just looking at a superior player to an inferior player. In these cases, in these games, that's not the case. So you get a lot of back and forth mistakes um, and good play, bad play. So that's what we kind of want to focus on the channel. Anyway, before I got into the actual matches, I figured it would be good because there's not much content out there, if at all, about champion matchups. Like a lot of people know about champions and matchups, but they don't have a guide that helps them or more intuition than just, oh, I like that champion, I like that map. Whereas I think when you look at the pick bands and the correct way to be doing it, you need more than just that. I remember it's come back to haunt me in a few tournaments, especially early days in Quake Champions, because one, you didn't have the experience on the maps with all the champions, and then when you come to the pick bands, your opponent can sort of do what they like because they do. So that's where obviously your in-game play is still more important than anything else. But in a tight series against a quality player or a player of your skill, it doesn't have to be a good player, a player of your skill. If you can get an edge on the pick band table, you know you're halfway there already. Now, one thing I will say, and I've fallen into the trap before, especially against players around my skill level. Um, I remember when I first got into Quake Champions and we played a few tournaments. I was speaking to Stejo, and like I said in previous videos, him, myself, and Frey's always been pretty open with what we know and sharing information. Um, Even though he was one of the players you probably playing in the back end of the tournament. But he always said, Cam, I think you're making a mistake at the pick bands because you pick like you need an advantage. And once he said that, it sort of clicked in my head, yeah, you're right. I am picking like I need an advantage. And it's the wrong way to go about pick bands because I think the best way to do it, if you are offered an advantage by your opponent, take it. Otherwise, let's just set up even matches where I can, I can just outplay my opponent and play better than him, but I'm not at a disadvantage from the get go. Because what I see, even in the Australian tournaments that I'm playing, watching before, I'm seeing some champion matchups that, even in the recent run sprint, I'm seeing some champion matchups that's just unfavourable from the get go and early on in the pick band. Of course, later on in the pick band, it's harder to get favourable matchups necessarily because there's only a limited number of champions to pick. Um, but I'm seeing even early days. I'm seeing some just stupid, honestly stupid, naive champion picks. And I think back to the LAN itself that we went to last year, and I played three guys. I'm not going to name the players, but three guys I played, and the first map of the series, they were Galena on the first map of the series, and I was Ranger or Strog, one of the two. And two of the maps I was Ranger, one of the maps I was Strog. I actually thought it was all three Ranger, but I went back and checked. It wasn't. One of them was Strog, two of them was Ranger. But it doesn't matter because those two mediums, if they're playing against any of the other mediums that aren't each other, they have a clear and obvious advantage. Um, so that's where I said to the guys at the time at the LAN, like, are you actually come here saying you're going to try and beat me? Well, are you actually trying to beat me or are you just like trolling, bro? You know what I mean? Like, you know when you play those series that never actually happened and it was just troll picks because you put the series in but you never actually played the series because you couldn't be fucked or whatever. Not that I've ever done that or before in a series, of course, but if you did, hypothetically, that's the kind of champions you would pick in. Like first map, you would pick Kiel versus fucking Swarlag or something like that, and then say the scoreline was 18-17. These type things. So I was thinking, you got to pick the right champion for the right map always. So that actually comes back to what when you should start thinking about your champions is actually before you even pick the maps and the map order. I know that sounds kind of weird, but you need to give some consideration to that before you even pick the maps. So Steve again was the one who told me that, and it makes sense. It's obvious once you know it, but if you don't know it, you're not thinking about it. You only think about the map order, and then it comes to the champions. It's a bit harder to match the champions because you might have your map, but then you have an unfavorable champion matchup, and okay, it's your map that you like, but then the other guy has a clear advantage, even though he might not be as good as your map, and he'll ride that to victory. So the format for this tournament, I've got the little fucking thing down here that I'm gonna like scratch out champions with. It was the best way I could think to do it because, and then I've got the video what was actually picked from the LAN. So I'll see how this goes. It might be a bit clunky, but let's just see if I press space, what happens. Yeah, okay, I'll just press play. All right, cool. Might be a bit clunky, but yeah, that's probably the best way I can do it. So the format was best of 7, a map in hand because I won the winners bracket grand final. I haven't checked out those videos that I made for those maps. Go check them out. They're good videos. The 7 map pool was Molten, Ruins, Deep Embrace, Veil of Path, Awoken, Blood Covenant, and Corrupted Keep. Now, I was always going to pick as my map in hand one of Molten Falls or Ruins of Sarnath. Reason being is because they're my 2 weakest maps, but also Ruins of Sarnath is probably Dan's strongest map, or right up there with his strongest map. And Molten Falls, I don't think Dan is that strong at Molten Falls, but I'm not strong at Molten Falls, so that's what I figured. I would play. I would choose Molten Falls as my winning map because that way, no matter what, I've got 6 maps I'm comfortable playing. I haven't got that much practice on Molten Falls, so I didn't want to pick that. Let that play. Even though Dan probably wouldn't have picked that, I didn't want to be in a high pressure match later on in the series, and then you're playing a map you're not really that good at. I figured I better just get that out of the way, and if he gets me on Ruins, he gets me on Ruins. That's what I was kind of thinking. Then, of course, he picked Ruins of Sarnath, which is good by him. In a big series, you want to set the tone, pick your map, your best map, especially when it's picks. Just pick your best map, and let's play that as the first map. I'm 1-0. That's the kind of way you should try and approach these sort of tournaments. Now, of course, you're not actually 1-0, but, in your head, if you feel like you're 1-0, then, gives you confidence to play that first game. And then the series can go from there because you're relaxing the series. You got a map, you're on the board, you're ready to go. And you're all square when he's already a map behind, which is good because if you start 1-0 up and he's announced 1-1, he will feel like he has the edge. The reason being is because he earned his map, you got given yours. I picked Deep Embrace as the second map. Now, I'm not sure if that was actually the right mood. I've picked Deep Embrace a lot of times in tournament and not got over the line. Usually, I think that map in general, you want to play against someone who you are stronger than, but someone who's similar strength to you. It can, I'm not saying it's a coin flip because it's not, you still got to win it, but probably I shouldn't have picked that map. I should have picked Veil of Path or Awoken, or even BC, because those 3 maps, they're probably my 3 strongest maps. BC, Veil, and Awoken, and then Corrupted Keep's probably 4th strongest map. So, probably I shouldn't have picked Deep Embrace, but I did. The next map Dan picked was Veil of Path. And again, when you're doing this, obviously there's too many permutations to know exactly what champions it's going to be. But you're roughly thinking, okay, Molten Falls is gone, Ruins of Sarnath, it's probably going to be Ranger versus fucking Visor or something, because I knew Dan likes Visor. Something like that, or it might be 2 lights or whatever. Then Deep Embrace, if it's 2 lights on Ruins, it's probably going to be 2 mediums on Deep Embrace and vice versa. So then probably going to be 2 lights on Deep Embrace. Veil of Path, it's usually 2 mediums. Sometimes you get heavies on the map, but usually 2 mediums. Then Awoken's the same. Usually it's 2 mediums or 2 lights. And BC is usually 2 lights, but later on in the series, the lights are probably going to be gone. So you're either going to be playing a Sorlag sort of tank or a clutch sort of tank, or you're going to be playing one of the faster mediums like Doom or something like that. Galena maybe. Although Galena was quite strong in this patch, so she was more likely going to be already gone. And then CK, the final map, you're probably going to get some weird matchups. Your heavies, your Keels and your Scale Bearers, these type champions. So that's what you're thinking when you do the original picks. And now we'll get into the actual pick bans and what we did. So I picked Molten, like I said, for my 1-0 map, and then it was Dan's first pick. Dan usually bans Clutch, and I think that's clever if you're not prepared to play Clutch. Just ban Clutch because there's a lot of players out there who play Clutch. They're usually confident to play Clutch in any matchup, any champion on the given maps. And Ruins of Sarnath is one of the maps you can definitely play Clutch. So, I was looking to, I was actually looking to play Clutch, but I knew probably he's going to deny it. And this is where experience from previous series can help you out. There's a bit of a tangent here, but if you remember in the video for the previous set, I picked Clutch as the first champion to play on Awoken, and it sort of caught him off guard a little bit. Then he had Ranger, and then obviously I think Clutch versus Ranger is actually in Clutch's advantage, especially on Awoken. So sometimes you play on your previous experience from the matchups, and I always tell this funny story. I used to tell Fraser this funny story, and this is to me the sign of the Stege's maturity when it comes and his what's the cunning when it comes to picking these pick bands in the tournaments and playing Quake Champions in tournament. We played each other in an online tournament, Siege and myself, and the first map was Ruins of Sanath, and I picked Visor first, and he played Anarchy, and all he did the whole game was camp at the fucking T-junction. And yeah, okay, I've used my sight. I can see he's standing in the T-junction. But he's just sitting there with rocket launcher, and there's nothing you can do. Because you don't have rocket launcher yet. If you go to rocket launcher, he's going to get rail, going to get LG, going to get red armor. And he literally, he played so campy, but he ended up winning the map by a couple of frags. I mean, he outplayed me on that game, and I ended up coming back to be like 4-4 or something, or 4-3. And then he got shot ahead at the end. And the whole week, or before the finals week, I said to Fraze, you know what I'm going to do, this cunt? I'm just going to pick... He's going to play like same way. He's going to pick Anarchy, and I'm just going to pick Ranger and fuck him up, because I'm just going to go into the T. I don't care that you're sitting there. I'm going to orb. You're going to miss your rockets, and I'm going to kill you. I said that for the whole week. I'm just going to pick Ranger on the first map, and then I'm going to beat him. And then we got to the tournament, and he picked map first. He picked Ruins of Sanath, and instantly, without doing anything, Neg Ranger. Like, he banned Ranger immediately. And I was just thinking, fuck, this cunt is clever. He knew what I was going to do. Like, and then we were laughing with it afterwards. I actually ended up winning the map because I got Strog instead, and then he picked Anarchy. Actually ended up winning the map, but it didn't matter because he knew what I was going to do based on the previous result that we had, where he knew how he played. He knew, and of course he knows we're clever as well. He knew that I knew what he'd done, and I was going to pick the champion that was going to stop him from being able to play that way again. If he could beat me another way, no worries. But he wasn't going to beat me like that. But he knew I was going to do that, and he banned Ranger immediately. And like when I saw Neg Ranger, I just thought, yeah, this guy is clever. You know what I mean? Anyway, so yeah, just a bit of a tangent there, but that's what can happen in these kind of scenarios when you have history with a player and you know their champions and the way they like to play the game. So you try to take that into account as best you can as well. Like, I know what Dan likes, he knows what I like. And he did take that into account at times, and I took that into account at times as well. So anyway, I'll just go off memory for now if I can. Oh, actually, no, I'll get it to play because then you guys can see what happens. So he banned Clutch. I picked Ranger, and he picked Visor. The reason being, again, is in the previous set, as you can go watch the video for that one that I did, he beat me as Visor, and I just thought I needed a bit more health in that game because I was caught with not much health, and if I got Ranger and got my orb, he can play how he's playing around T and his rails and that, but I'll have more damage and I'll be able to beat him. Now, I won't spoil the results because you'll see what happens in the sets. In the set, I don't want to spoil it for the results, but that's what I was thinking before the tournament. I'm going to play Ranger, and usually, generally speaking, Ranger against Visor on most maps. Even I think on Ruins of Sanath, even still, I still think Ranger has the clear advantage. Whether I made it tell or not, you'll see, but that's what I was thinking. And then Dan, of course, is thinking, I like Visor, and Visor on Ruins is probably his like staple match. That's what he likes. That's what he wants. So I was happy to give that to him, but I just wanted to have something I felt could counter what he was going to do. So I think Ruins of Sanath was one of those maps where we both had something we were happy with, and let's move on to the next map. So then for Deep Embrace, I think I banned Slash because what I was thinking was Deep Embrace, just leave everything up. Oh no, actually, yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, sorry, I make a mistake. I banned Strong and Pika, which is a mistake. And the reason being is because, and again, this just comes back to the history, in the online tournament before I played at the LAN against Dan, in the final, I had Nyx against his Athena, and I beat him on that matchup. It's not generally a matchup like I would think was good, but I'd already had a history where I beat him on that matchup, so I thought what I'll do is, if he picks Athena, I'm just going to pick Nyx, and I'll beat him again. Which is a bad pick because Nyx against Athena in general on most maps, Nyx is super weak in that matchup. In my opinion, Nyx against any other light, maybe Slash you can sort of play, but against Anarchy or Athena on most maps, I think Nyx is weaker than the other two. But Nyx is very much a champion against a lot of the other champions, like let's say BJ or Doom. The mediums that you get in that matchup, Nyx is extremely strong in that matchup, even compared to what Anarchy or Athena might be. Of course, depending on the map. I'm not talking about like BC, of course. But, you know, most map, if it's like Awoken or Ruins of Sanath or whatever, BJ against Nyx is heavily in favour of Nyx, right? But Nyx against the other lights, in general, I think she's not that strong. Especially on, the smaller maps where you're not going to have your Ghost Walk up a lot of the time. You just have no utility a lot of the time, but you double jump. which isn't going to get you around the map that much or get you that many frags, especially against Athena, who's got 3 hooks and can really move around in Deep Embrace or BC, probably the 2 maps that you're going to be playing that matchup. So I banned Strong, but that's a mistake. The reason being is because what you should leave, if you've got 3 champions that are, only 2 champions that are equal strength for the map, don't ban one of them ever, because what will happen is the opponent will just pick the one that's still up and you'll lose. So that's like, let's say Clutch and these other weird matchups against Ranger didn't exist, and you knew it was going to be Strong versus Ranger, which you see so often in tournaments. Strong versus Ranger, probably the 2 strongest champions in the game. Don't ban Strong, because then the opponent's just going to have Ranger, and no matter who you pick, you're going to be at a disadvantage. So don't try to do that. So the biggest example of that as well is what happens on Vale of Panath. Let's say there was only, of the mediums left, Eisen and BJ left, that you were comfortable playing. Don't ban one of them, because then what will happen is the opponent will pick the one that is good, and then you'll be left with nothing. So try not to do that, which is what I sort of did here. Leave Strong and Pika up. If he picks Strong and Pika, you can pick Athena. If he picks Athena, you can pick Strong and Pika, and then, like I said, we've got that 50-50 matchup that we can play. But what happened was he picked Athena, which I was going to pick if he never picked it, and then I picked Nyx, which, again, it was because of the history that he had. What you see with some professionals, the high-level players overseas, is if someone's a light on Deep Embrace, quite often they play heavy. Or you could play Doom here as well, but I think Athena has an advantage over Doom. But you could play Doom here. Or you could play Sorlag or Keel, but I'd never really practiced them on Deep Embrace. You see Rafa and I see Maxter sometimes playing the heavies like Keel and shit on Deep Embrace. There's method to it, definitely you can do it, but I've never played it, so I wasn't willing to do that in the tournament, in the grand final. So what I should have done, like I said, is when you ban Strong and Pika, that just gave him an auto pick Athena, and then he has an advantage over pretty much anyone you pick. Maybe you could pick Sorlag here, like I said, but I like it if I had more experience, but I don't. So I've just given him the advantage here in this matchup. And again, I'm not going to spoil the result, but perhaps he'll make it tell. So yeah, don't do that. What you're better off is just, like I said, leave the if there's 2 champions you think are equal to each other on the map, and then everyone else is inferior, just leave them both up, and you take the second pick of the 2, and just accept that, okay, you might not have your number 1 champion, you got your number 2 champion, and you can play, you're happy, and you're good to go. Don't give yourself a disadvantage by trying to gain an advantage, which is what I did in this matchup, and yeah, it cost me. No spoilers. All right, so then that's the match. I was meant to cross out the champions. Let's do that. So, Pfizer's gone. Ranger is gone. Athena is gone. Nyx is gone. Strog's gone. Clutch is gone. All right, so heading into Vale, you're looking at the champions that are left down here, right? And this is Dan's ban. So the 3 champions probably we're thinking, or 4 champions is probably actually, even though DK was a bit weak in this patch at the time, so there's probably only 3 champions you're thinking is the premium champions you want to play, and that'll be Galena, BJ, and Eisen. And again, Dan knows if he doesn't ban BJ, I'm going to pick BJ. And in my opinion on this map, BJ is a clear favourite above Galena, Eisen, or DK. Or Sorlag. Any champion you pick, if they're all the champions that are left, and you give me BJ on that map, I used to say the phrase: if Vale is the first map, I'm happy to play BJ against any champion, even against Ranger, even against Strog, especially on that map. So then Dan, again, this is where it comes back to the history between the 2 players. If you look at the upper bracket set, I had BJ against his Eisen. And as we saw in that match, I really nullified what he was able to do as that character. And even though I was on the back foot for a long period of the time, I was always getting the next frag, because you can get to 100 and use your ability as BJ on that map, and you can frag out. And Dan really got found wanting in that map for being able to, finish me off or make his advantage on the map tell, because of the strength of the champion and the way that I used the champion in that map. So he was thinking, okay, that happened, and he sort of dominated me on that map. I don't want that to happen again. I better ban BJ. So that's what he did, which is clever, because I was going to pick BJ. And then he's thinking that the 2 champions left is Eisen and Galena. Whichever one Cam doesn't pick, I'm going to pick, and I'm happy on either way. And I was thinking the same thing. So Then he banned BJ. So BJ's gone. Here he is. And then of course, you're between Gleaner and Eisen. Personally, I like Eisen out of the two, but Gleaner was probably a bit stronger in the patch. But regardless, you're happy either way. I knew whatever I didn't pick, he was going to pick, and vice versa. So I picked Eisen, thinking that Vale Panathi, Eisen's pretty strong, and you can definitely play him. And then he picked Gleaner, and he's happy. And we're both happy heading into that match. And then Awoken. So I can't remember what it was my ban, and I was thinking for the next map again. There's two champions here that I'm happy with on this. See if you can work out which two, and think about who you would ban in this situation and why. Right. So just have a think, and I'll tell you what I did. So I banned Slash, and the reason I banned Slash is because I know for BC, Dan's probably going to pick Slash or like having Slash if I leave Slash up for the next map. But Slash isn't really playable on Awoken, so I'm not worried if he picks it on Awoken. I knew he wasn't going to pick it on Awoken, but if he does, it's fine. I'm happy. So then you're leaving two champions to pick from on this map. Again, Anarchy and Doom. And then whichever one I got, I was going to be happy with. Dan picked Doom, which I think is a mistake when Anarchy's up. Especially because you see in Europe, a lot of players, doesn't matter what the map is, first map of the series, they're always picking Anarchy, even if it's Awoken sometimes. So, yeah, I was a bit surprised by that. I think he made a mistake there, similar to my mistake on the second map. So, yeah, like I said, I banned. Again, there was two champions that were playable for this map. I thought Anarchy and Doom. Don't, and I can't tell you more than anything, don't ban one of those two in this situation. Because if you do, he's going to pick the one that's left, and you're going to be left behind. So if I banned Anarchy here, he was going to just play Doom, and he probably has the advantage on that map against any of the other champions. If I banned Doom, he was going to play Anarchy. He might play DK because he actually does like DK a lot. But yeah, Anarchy is a clear advantage over the rest of the champions in that map. Or maybe if you're playing Anarchy, but sort of like you can sort of play it. But try to exclude the heavies for now because one, I'm not that strong on it. Dan's not that strong on him either, so I wasn't really thinking about. I was worried about if he was a heavy. I'm not saying you can't make it work and play even in high level because you see some pros doing that. I'm not saying you can't, but for me personally, I wasn't willing to do that, and I don't think he was either. So, like I said, if there's two champions left, do not ban. And again, I'm telling you again, do not ban one of those two. The opponent will pick the other one, and you will be left behind. So, like I said, I banned for the next map because I knew that those two champions were going to be going next, which I'll spoil what happens. Let's go through. So I banned Slash, and then he picked Doom, and I picked Anarchy immediately. And look at the speed. Couldn't get in there fast enough. Well, obviously there's a bit of lag, but delay maybe. But I remember as soon as I saw it, I couldn't get in there fast enough. And again, I'll come back to obviously, maybe story's not making so much sense now. But I remember what happened to me at the 2022 LAN, and I got destroyed on this map in the deciding map against Stage when we played. It was the same matchup I was talking about before, BJ versus Nix. The only reason I picked BJ on that map was because I was on Ruins of Sarnath, because I saw Fraze doing quite well next to me on that map, but then, of course, I didn't take into consideration who the opponent was, what the opponent's champion was, etc., etc. And I played it before on that map. BJ is quite decent on that map, but not against Nix or a light generally. Nick, so that's what you're thinking. Anyway, as soon as I picked BJ, literally Steve, it just said Nix, like immediately, like so fast, like he snatched it out of my hand. When you realise that you've got to, like, imagine you're playing poker and the bloke tables his hand and you know your hand's better than the other guy's hand. You can't wait to put it down, smack that down on that table, you know what I mean? You just snatched it out of his hand. And he snatched it out of my hand and destroyed me on that map because I picked the wrong champion. So don't make those kind of mistakes in your pickups here. So that's what I did with it. I was extremely happy when I saw he picked Doom. I'd much rather play Anarchy against Doom than Doom against Anarchy. Not saying you can't win, of course. And you see, I think Kilson's quite famous for picking Doomslayer first out of everyone on Awoken. So of course you can play the map. But like I said in the interview after the series was finished, I think a lot of people get confused between, and I tell this to guys, Doom is good on Awoken, in brackets, for Doom. I think people get that confused with Doom is good on Awoken because they're not the same thing. Doom is good on Awoken for Doom, yes, But compared to other champions, Ranger, even Anarchy, Athena, Nyx, Doom is not good on Orchid. And you need to get this out of your head. Because I see a lot of guys, now he has got a bit stronger over the last few months, I give you that, with the patches and whatnot. The ability is quite decent, what you can do with it now. Get around the map really fast. Not so much for the health regen that you can get, but yeah. But I still think noobs overpick Doom. And I've lost Doom as Doom in tournament more times than I can count. It's probably the champion I've lost the most maps in tournament with. Because you think he's great, and then he's just not. You know what I mean? So, I'm not saying you can't win with him. Of course, I'm a big believer you can win with any champion, any matchup, if you're good enough. But you don't want to be giving equal skill or similar skill, or even lesser skill opponents an advantage like that. Because then you're just playing against it. You know what I mean? Why would you play against it when you don't have to? So then I picked Anarchy, and this is where the series really went behind for him. Because you can see there's only 4 champions left, so it's just pick. And I think the way it goes is he picks, then I pick, then I pick, then he picks. And you can see the four champions left. To me, there's a clear pick here, Dan. I'm sorry. There's a clear pick here, and he didn't make it. He made a mistake. And he made a comfort pick because he loves DK. Fair enough. I love DK too. He's fun. He's good. But he's no good on BC. And I'm not going to go into the detail of it too much, but I actually had a dream about 3 or 4 years ago. I was going to show I considered showing the Facebook messages between me and Fraser. Of course, he's passed away now, but I still read his messages from time to time. And in the messages, I was telling him about this dream that I had. And I got proof of it. I showed the boys at the LAN. And it was a big, huge match. It was a big match in my dream. And the opponent was DK on BC. And for years, I was saying a phrase, and I was talking about other top players that had, in my dream, they are the ones who picked it. Don't do that. Don't pick DC on. Don't pick DK on BC, you dumb cunt, because you're going to lose. Anyway, not to have a crack it down, but it is a clear mistake. When Sorlag is up, of course, Sorlag is going to be the best of the 4 champions on that map because you just have all that mobility and the stack on that map. So I'm not saying again you can win as DK against Sorlag on BC, but you're just not giving yourself a good opportunity against a player who's similar skill to you. You're asking to lose, and that's what happened to Dan. And I think this is where, he did make a clear and obvious mistake. Now, yes, like I said, it's a comfort pick for him. And I'm not saying Sorlag's not bad on BC, but the other champions, obviously, then you're not going to pick them on BC. So, it was between those two. But, I think he made a mistake here. And I think it hurt him in the end. So, he that's what he's picked. And then, of course, I'm thinking, oh, no worries, I'll take Sorlag. Easy as you like. And then it was my pick again, which I actually didn't. Funny enough, I didn't know it was my pick again. I thought it was his pick, but it doesn't matter. You take what you take, and of course I'll pick Scalebearer now, and then he picked Kill for the final map, which was going to be a weird map. If it got to it, but that's always the case. I think you guys can remember the grand final. Who was it? Was it Rafa or I can't remember what it was. It was something weird. It was like Sorlag versus Scalebearer on Awoken for a big map. I think it was Razy was involved in that map. I can't remember anyway. You get these weird matchups on the final maps. It's just the nature of these best of 7 using all 16 champions. There is some blokes who like it. There's some blokes who don't like it because they want to see the highest value of Quake, highest skill of Quake, rather than how not shit you can be on the shittest champions in the game. But that's just how it goes. So so that's the picks that got done for the tournament. So there's some ideas for you thinking in your games. Of course, that's my personal preference, the way I like to play the maps. You guys will say you can play some of the champions you like to pick are a little bit different, or even guys at the top level, you'll say, "Oh, Cam, but you're not watching the pros. They're doing this, they're doing that." I'm saying what I do based on what I know about Australian Quake players and the way we're going to play the maps. What I think the best champions are for the maps. Now, of course, if you're playing in a different way, you can use a different champion in a different way, right? Excuse my poor language, but you know what I'm saying. So you have to take that into account. How are you going to play the map when you play based on the opponent's strengths as well? So so if we go through the maps, we'll actually have a look at who ended up ahead. I think Visor vs Ranger is pretty even. If not, I'm a believer that Ranger has the advantage. So we'll go 1-0 to Cam. Athena versus Nyx on Deep Embrace is clear advantage to Dan, which I've made a mistake, as I said. So that's 1-1. Galena versus Eisen is pretty even. Maybe in this patch we'll give it to Dan because Glenn is probably a little bit stronger in that patch at the time. So 2-1 Dan. Anarchy versus Doom on Awoken. In my opinion, that's a clear advantage to Anarchy, so go 2-2. Sorlag versus Death Knight is clear advantage to Sorlag, so go 3-2 to me. And Skull versus Kill, whilst it's a bad matchup, I still think that's a bad map for. I still think that's an advantage for Skullbearer. So I'll go 4-2 to Cam in the 6 maps that were played. I had the advantage, not massive advantage on a couple of maps, but I had an advantage or a big advantage on 4 maps out of the 6, which you have to look back at the pick bans and say, and don't get me wrong, I made my mistakes as well, but you have to look back at the pick bans and think that Dan made a couple of mistakes in this set, and maybe that hurt him in the long run, because like I said, when you're playing against good players who are similar skill to you, and you're giving them an edge, even if it's slight, you don't want to make them have that edge at the start. That's what Steve, like I said, always used to tell me, Cam, you're playing like you're picking like you need an edge, and it's a mistake. That's why I'm getting an edge on you. So just take that into account in your games. And yeah, of course, if the map's order is completely different, then the champion order is completely different. So this is one specific scenario for the tournament, but you can use this logic for other tournaments. Now, in a best of 3 or a best of 5, of course, the picks is going to be a lot different because you're only picking premium champions really for each map. You probably get 2 good champions and 1 average champion on the 3 maps. So obviously the strategy is a little bit different when you're in those sort of smaller sets or medium level sets. This was the grand final, so of course best of 7 is pretty rare, but the same theory can be used across all the sets. So I probably rambled a bit in this video and it's probably gone on for a lot longer. As I said, it always does. But that's my thinking in the map pool. So I hope you guys got something out of this. I'll see you in the next video. I don't know if the next video I'll do will be this from the start, but I still plan to do it. We'll get into that at some stage. But hope you guys enjoy this video for now, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.